It's your favorite manifesting cousin, Neira, and welcome to the Manifest with Me podcast, where we will be discussing mindset, manifestation, and money, with a little ratchet behavior mixed in from time to time. If you haven't already, please make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Neira_X. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Neira the G.O.A.T, and visit my website, NeiraTheGoat.com. I'm so happy and grateful that you've taken a moment to listen to this podcast, and I hope you find this week's episode super helpful and insightful. Make sure to leave me a 5-star review and comment on this episode and shout me out on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Hey peeps, it's your favorite manifesting cousin, Nee, and I am so happy to be recording this podcast episode. I had decided a couple of months ago that I was not going to record any more podcast episodes or post anymore until the top of the new year, but something would not allow me to not post something before the year is out. So first things first, I want to just thank all of you guys so much for all of your support for the podcast. I made a post on my Instagram a few weeks ago, given the roundup of the analytics that was given to me by Anchor and Spotify. And I'm so happy to say that I'm in the top 25% of podcasts in my category. And I have not even been posting for an entire year. And I've kind of been on a hiatus the last couple of months. So shout out to each and every one of you guys. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you more than you could ever know. Today's podcast is going to be about shit I've learned in 2022. And I actually made a list last week. I had like 30 things listed on there, but I'm going to give you the top 3 things that I've learned in 2022. Um, Before getting into that, though, I just really want to also say thank you for all of the prayers and calls and text messages. As you guys know, over the last couple of months, I've lost my grandmother. Um, my brother was in a really bad car accident, and I also lost my nephew this year. So it's been a lot. And those are just 2 major things that have happened this year. But this year has been one of the most challenging years of my life. I can't even lie. Um, and for many different reasons. There was a lot of like closed chapters that happened this year. A lot of lessons I feel like that I guess I needed to learn this year to kind of prepare me for what's to come. Some of them, most of them were unexpected. So with that all being said, I want to get into the first lesson that I learned in 2022, and it is okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad. And I've talked about this on my Instagram live a lot. I've shared this with my friends over the year. Um, and I'm pretty sure that anybody that's listening to this can relate when I say it's really hard sometimes to identify with the feeling of sadness, because subconsciously we're kind of taught to, if anybody's asking us how we're doing, it's like we automatically just say we're okay, we're fine, everything is all good. We even add a little smile on it, where internally we could literally be falling apart. But for whatever reason, it's like we have to save face. I feel like sometimes I have to save face, and it's really hard for me to identify with the feeling of being sad. And sometimes sadness, you don't know how long you're going to be sad. Just how in reality we really don't know how long we're going to be happy either. um but you don't know how long sadness is going to last. And sometimes whenever it's hard to even identify that emotion or to make the connection that maybe your actions are changing or whatever because you feel a little sad, or you might be dabbling into depression and you don't realize it, it's hard to navigate through that space, because you are not even aware that that's what your current state of emotion is. Um, but this year, I have to say, I have so many things that have really made me sad this year. Like, I just made an entire year in November. from leaving Louisiana, where I've lived my entire life. Um, so there have been many moments of sadness, missing my family, missing my friends. I had 3 deaths in my family this year, so there's a lot of sadness around that. Um, even like watching my children transition and be away from their dad in a different state. There were moments where I was sad having to parent them and kind of coach them through their emotions and their feelings, because there was a part of me that felt like I was the cause of their sadness. Um, Leaving and separating from a career makes you sad. Feeling like you've had people betray you. And I'm not quite sure when I was able to put my finger on it. But at some point during the year, I was able to identify that I was feeling sad. And I had been dealing with feeling sad for a very long time and trying my best to cover it up and act like everything was okay. And I just want to remind you all, if you're listening to this, being sad is a very real and valid emotion. It doesn't make you weak. um, it does not make you weak. It makes you human, because nobody is happy all the fucking time. And we should stop. We should really stop just accepting, especially for my families and our friends. We should stop accepting the answer when you ask someone if they're okay with them just being all right or them being fine. We've got to do a better job if we know that our family members or our friends are going through certain things, that we are able to pose questions in a different way that might be able to get down to the bottom of how they actually feel, so that we may be able to offer up the proper help or assistance. Because like I said, most people don't want to identify with the emotion of sadness, so they'll never tell you that they're sad. And then sadness unchecked can develop into depression. And as we all know, mental illness is a very fragile and real thing. Um, and I think that as it relates to manifestation in this podcast and everything that I do, um, I never want to be gimmicky when I talk about manifestation. I will always want to be very real, authentic, and genuine whenever I talk to you about these things. And it's okay. Like, some people think that, and maybe even I thought that for a minute, like, I'm not able to manifest things because I don't feel well, or life is just like attracting things to me based on this vibration that I'm putting out into the world. And some of that is true. Some of that is true. But the beautiful thing about understanding your emotions and being able to um, control them, I guess, to a certain extent, is being honest with yourself, and then from you being honest with yourself, you're able to make whatever step to go up to the next emotion. Abraham Hicks, well, The Teaching of Abraham by Esther and Jerry Hicks, they talk about the emotional guidance scale. And I've said this on my Instagram story before, I mean, on my Instagram live before, so forgive me if it sounds redundant. Um, but it is unrealistic to think that you can go from sadness or depression to joy within a 24-hour period. You can go from depression to being sad, and then from sad to being angry, and from angry to being frustrated, and from frustrated to being all right, and from all right to being, I feel a little better, meh, whatever. And then from there to finding and being able to go up the emotional guidance scale to get to a level of appreciation, gratitude, and joy. But I just think that when it comes to um our emotions, like I said, it's really hard to identify with those that are quote unquote not so good, or maybe those that are kind of taboo about speaking about, even anger sometimes. Like, sometimes it's really hard to even identify with anger. But even the Bible says, be angry and sin not. It's like all of those things, all of your feelings are valid. And sometimes people do some fucked up ass shit. I don't know if you needed to hear that. I mean, there are many times this year that I needed to remind myself of that. Sometimes people do some really fucked up ass shit, and it's not your fault, and it hurts your feelings, and it makes you angry, and it makes you sad. Um, But the good thing about feelings is, the good things about emotions, energy in motion, is that your emotions don't have to stay in one spot. They're constantly cyclical, moving, you know. So just know that even though you may feel angry today, if you allow yourself, if you open yourself and you give yourself space and grace to actually feel that emotion, in time, it will eventually transform into something else, you know. So that's number one. Number two. All right, moving on. My second lesson that I'd like to share with you guys from 2022 is to keep your fucking head on swivel. Listen, audacity is at an all-time high. We all know this. And I don't think it's going to go down anytime soon, even going into year 2023 and beyond. You must keep your head on swivel. I have learned this year that even with my purest intentions, the people that I encounter are not always on the same vibrational frequency as I am. The people that I encounter do not have the same morals and values that I have, and that has been proven to me many times this year. And I'm pretty sure that you guys have probably experienced, if you have not already, you will, but you have probably experienced exactly what I'm talking about. Listen, at the end of the day, people are going to always choose them. So it's really important that you take on the identity of being self. I want to say selfish. There's a part of me that wants to say self-full. Um, but just being mindful more of yourself and what matters most to you. Because I sometimes find myself constantly thinking about what other people need, while everybody else around me is not even thinking about what I need. They're only thinking about what they need. And especially when it comes to business, keep your head on swivel. Let me give you, and this is like a, I don't even know how many fold message. Listen, the people that you work with are not your friends. The people that you work with are not your friends. Y'all can have great relationships. Y'all can talk outside of work. But at the end of the day, the people that you work with are not your friends. Keep your mouth shut. People are out here stealing energy, stealing ideas, and even repeating your business in a way that you didn't even deliver the business to them in. You got to keep your head on swivel. Everybody is not your friend. No matter how many smiles they give you, no matter how many nice gestures they do for you, everybody is not your friend, and that is okay. You have to be okay with that. You have to understand that sometimes it's just business. Sometimes it just is what it is. But everybody is not in your corner. So it's really important that if you haven't already, right now, you need to be doing a real hardcore assessment of your life. Who needs to stay? Who needs to leave? The people that are staying, how do we categorize those people? Because everybody isn't your friend. I want you to learn the word associate. Learn the word associate and get really familiar with it. Learn the word colleague and get really familiar with it because everyone is not your friend. And I can sometimes blur those lines, not because I believe that everybody is my friend. So let me be clear when I say this. I know who my friends are. Like, for real, for real. Like, and this year, if there has never been a year in my life, I know who my friends are. But I can sometimes blur those lines because I'm a very candid and relatable person. And so my business sometimes comes out just because I talk about life in a relatable way. I use real life experiences to explain myself or whatever the case may be. And even in innocently doing that, sometimes people could take what you say and try to turn it and twist it into something that they're not for their gain or for your detriment. So keep your head on swivel. Keep your head on swivel. Listen, my dad always says, never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And that is the honest to God's truth. Whatever you have going on, keep your head on swivel and keep your business to yourself. It's certain things that you don't even need to tell your friends. You tell them whenever you need to tell them. Whatever your next move is, what if it's in your business, if it's in your personal life, your marriage, your career, whatever, let people know when it's time to let them know. And it's not that you're trying to withhold information, and it's not even that you think that they're unworthy of knowing. But sometimes if you say things too prematurely, it could kill a dream. I listened to something just earlier today that said you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful of the people that you tell things to, because sometimes the vision that God's given you for your life, the vision that God's given you for your life is your vision. It's not anyone else's. So you are focused on the thing that God has shown you, or the desire that's been placed in your heart. And then another person, if you share that with them, they're going to only, depending on the state of emotion that they're in when you share it with them, they could tell you something to totally deter you from what you know that has been placed in your heart. So that's why it's important too. Okay? So, rule number 2, things that I've learned in 2022, keep your head on swivel. Okay. And number 3, ask for help. We find ourselves being so stressed out because we're trying to figure all of our problems out with our human strength. And the reality is, we can only do so much as humans. We only have so much capacity to figure problems out, to actually physically get things done, to actually have the emotional space to hold so much. We can only do so much. And an issue, especially as women, especially as Black women, Black people, and I know that there are so many people that listen to my podcast, but I also know the majority of my demographic. It is so easy to want to take on all of the worries of the world onto our shoulders, because that's what we've always seen. We even have that strong Black woman thing. Like, no. Going into 2023, please don't call us that. Don't call me that for sure. Um but you've got to be able to ask for help. And you've got to be able to put your pride to the side to be able to ask for help. This has been the most humbling year of my life, child. And if there is anybody that is stubborn, it is Neira the G.O.A.T, i.e., GOAT. I am so stubborn and so headstrong. I don't like asking for help. Sometimes I'm asking for help when I'm like really in a hole or into some deep shit. And everybody is like, why didn't you say something earlier? And it's because I, like many people, have a tendency of wanting to figure all of my problems out myself because I don't want to be a burden to someone else. But here's the thing when it comes to asking for help. One, like I said, you can't figure everything out on your own. Two, you are kind of like blocking the blessings of other people, because there's so many people that love you and that want to see you happy and want to see you successful, and you are standing in the way of allowing them to be able to do something for you that will bless them. Even them actually doing whatever it is for you could be blessing them more than you know. And it is not always even monetary, but just sometimes really saying how you feel in the moment gives your friend or a loved one an opportunity to be able to encourage or pour into you like you may always be pouring into them. Not opening your mouth, though, what the Bible says, you have not because you ask not. So sometimes the solution that you are looking for, you don't have that solution because you don't even talk about the issue with anybody. You know what I mean? And everybody's not going to have the exact answer or the exact amount of money or the exact whatever that it is that you need. But if you open yourself up to all possibilities of finding a solution, i.e., asking for help, then you also open yourself up to all of the possibilities for a solution to be able to come to you. But the moment that you try to keep it all to yourself and try to figure it out all on your own, then you are closing yourself off or pinching yourself off from God being able to move through the people around you. And then the other side of it too is because, like I said earlier, sometimes we're trying to figure out these problems with our human strength. Some things do have to be turned over to the supernatural. I joke about this on my Instagram live all the time, but listen, as human beings, we are the co-creators. But there's only one creator of all people and all things. And that creator is going to always humble us and remind us that at the end of the day, we don't fucking run this show. There's only so much that we can actually control. There's only so much that we can do before we have to turn over our natural to the supernatural. So make sure that as you are entering into this new year, that you are asking for help when you actually need it. And listen, let go of the feeling of guilt and shame and just be open to receiving the help that you need. Guilt and shame is a trick. Fear, guilt, and shame is a trick of the mind to stop you from getting what you need in order to succeed. So don't allow those things, guilt, shame, pride, fear, don't allow those lower vibrational energies to keep you from getting to where you need to be. We weren't meant to live a life defeated. We weren't meant to live a life of always feeling down or stressed or whatever the case may be. Like, life is supposed to be fun and light and free and flowing and all of those things. And the reality is, no one's perfect. So there are going to be moments where you feel like shit. But when you realizing that, you've been feeling like shit for a minute, at some point, it's something that we've got to release in order to make that load a little lighter. So let's do a quick recap. It's okay to be sad. Keep your head on swivel and always ask for help. Listen, like I said, this has been a year for the books. And there are certain things that I can't talk about just yet that have transpired, but I eventually will. But even in the midst of tragedy, even in the midst of you not getting what you want, even in the midst of your reality may not look like what you see in your mind's eye. You don't have to see it. You just have to know it's coming. And I want you to hold on to that. I want you to hold on to that today and into the new year. You don't have to see it, but just know that it's coming. Stay grounded in your faith. And listen, this podcast isn't a Christianity podcast or anything like that. And I'm not trying to push a particular religion on anyone. But I just want you to know and mark my words, because I know that you guys see it. The world that we live in is going to get more and more challenging by the year. And I mean that in all aspects of it. And you have got to get your faith anchored in something. I would say Black Jesus. But it's up to you. Whatever it is that you want to get your faith anchored in. But let me tell you something. If your faith is not anchored into something, you will get tossed and blown and turned with the winds and the wanes and the everything of this world, because there's so many people dying. There's so much corruption. There's so much stuff going on in the world, and it gets heavy at times. There's so many things that happen in all of our personal lives, and it gets heavy at times. And let me tell you something, You cannot do it all on your own. You cannot think that you're going to get up every morning and figure this shit out all by yourself. So get connected, get grounded in faith, and get connected with like minded people that are going to keep you encouraged and you can encourage them on this journey. I love you all so much. I pray that each and every one of you that hears this podcast and has supported me along the way and are newcomers or whatever the case may be, I pray that you have a prosperous, a blessed, a healthy, a safe, a joyous, a peaceful new year. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any questions or any topics that you'd like me to discuss, please don't hesitate to leave a comment or send me a DM on Instagram. Peace, love, and light to you. Always remember what you are seeking is seeking you too. Happy manifesting.